I don't know. Okay. It looks like I'm back, but everybody's probably over at the they're live. Okay, whatevers. So here's what's going on. We are in a wacky retrograde. We're just having so many things that are like coming at us so quickly that it is wackadoodle. So I'm just going to say that. Welcome to those of you just jumping in now. And I am so sorry. I just literally could not get back in. It's just, I know. Hey, okay, so I'm going to say hi to some people. So if that freaks you out, just fast forward through this part. Hi, Catherine. I know it's like, hi, Jody, Stephanie. Oh, Amanda, hi. True Crime Trish, good to see you. Nikki, Emma, good to see some of you guys. Ugh, good. Tazzle Two Shoes. Thank you. All right, let's see. Oh, yes, I'm feeling so much better, Dave G. Thank you. It's funny because I was going to talk about the UK tonight a little bit, so that's good that you're here. So I just want, Regina, good to see you. Okay, I am, let me see. Let me just see if I can, I'm just waiting for just a second to see if I get any of my mods coming on because life is better with a mod, with my moderators. But of course, I don't tell anybody, so how should they know, right? Cruise Boston, you's here. Man, you know something? It's like you are the best. All right. So there's a bunch of stuff I want to, let's see, work hours have been cut in half. Oh, good. All right, so here's some things that I wanted to talk about tonight because I was kind of sitting there in this like funkadoodle, you know? And I mean, I'm fine now. I'm actually doing a lot better. I hope you are. I hope you're all staying safe and away from, it's pretty bad. Her? Aww. Hold on, I'm reading Emma's. Oh, girly girl. Where are you in the world, Emma? Yeah, because I'm so a couple things I want to say. First of all, I have been looking at one of the most fascinating things that I'm seeing is astrologically what was going on, right? And and by the way, tonight we're going to talk about some astrological things that were happening on December 29th, 1940. And that was that was actually the first fireside chat that Roosevelt would have with the American people, where he was broaching the subject of us helping the British and the Allied forces by making munitions for Europe. So it's a very interesting speech because in it, it's a very powerful portend. It portends, meaning it kind of there was a lot of dark fringe around it in the sense that we now know what he was sitting on. We now know what was to come. But we also know that he was putting together, and I'm talking about FDR at the time, astrologically, he had Sun, Moon, and Mercury in Capricorn. Now, in English, for those of you that just plain talk, what that means is there was a lot at stake. The biggest thing at stake was, of course, if you think about it, was that the Axis powers, which were considered at that time Japan, Japan, Italy, and Germany. Those were the Axis powers, and those were the powers that were invading Europe. Now, one of the things he talks about in here, and he talks about plain talk, I'm not going to read the whole speech. I'm going to get back to Emma in a second. I'm not going to share the whole speech. I want to share some excerpts of it with you because I feel like it very much starts to reflect how he was taking on leadership and what was going on in that part of the world. And by the way, happy birthday to Emma. I just want to say that because this is a very trying time for all of us. All right. And I just feel like we need to just be, I know this is like very Pollyanna of me, but I just feel a little bit like, okay, can we just be positive, you know? And I want to share with you a quote it was a quote, and I put it up today, and I thought it was an interesting, it's very interesting. Never before in all our history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred. How do you think that is? I just want to look at happy birthday, Emma. I know we're a little bit on the lag. Anybody know who that is? I'm going to share it again. Here we go. Never before in all history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred. Anybody? Nobody's even... Oh, am I buffering? Okay, sorry guys, I tried to go on the bigger internet. Anybody know who that is? Any guesses? Let me see. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about astrology while you guys guess who that is. If there's no buffering. Okay, thanks, Cruz. So who do you think that was that I was sharing? Anybody? You can just say no buffering. Okay, good. FDR. Yeah. FDR on October 31st, 1936 said, never before in all our history have these forces, and he was talking about Congress and a lot of other, the opposite party. So in those days, it was considered the Republican Party because he was Democrat. Never before in all our history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred. And he said that at Madison Square Garden. It was a famous address he gave on October 31st, 1936. So what's interesting is that exactly every politician, have you ever found a politician that isn't somewhat hated? You know, like, and by the way, this is just I think in many ways it has gotten, I really believe now, and I'm going to talk astrology about this. Part of what I think is what's going on is that, you know, everybody was talking about, you know, interference of different countries and blah, blah, blah. And I wonder if part of our division isn't some of those people coming into our social media and, like, you know, baiting us, right? So I have to say that I really feel that when we look at where we were in 1940, and I am going to share with you that particular night, it was December 29th, 1940, and we actually know the history, right? So we know that in 1941, it would be just a few weeks shy of a year when Pearl Harbor would be bombed by the Japanese. And we know from history that because Japan and Germany were allies, right? They had signed an agreement. We know now that that what's happening, let's see. Oh, that's fun. Okay, Catherine said her son's learning about him now. He's amazing. But the thing that we know that was happening was that when FDR gave this speech, he was specifically lying to the American people. He knew he was lying. He knew there was no way he could keep us out of the war. But what he was doing was he was asking for help for Britain. He was very much a part of being in, right? Being the, how can he say, what he says, and this was very important in that time, he says that we need to protect them. And he explained why. I know, right? Say what? I know. Exactly. That's so funny. Chris Boston, you crack me up all the time. Okay, so let me show you what I really wanted to kind of illustrate was, you know, and it's funny. I really want to take some of this time that that we're in downtime. I'm never in downtime, I'm always working, but I want to take some of this time to figure out how to do screen shares and stuff like that, because I'm like year of the flood. Okay, it's like, so, like, you know. Okay, here it is, the Fireside chat. It was called a radio address of the president. Now, what was very interesting, let's talk about that history for a minute. FDR made the Fireside chat famous. And he felt that speaking directly in plain language to the American people was the way to bypass his haters. The media hated him. The Congress was like, you're crazy, because he was just, doing these crazy things. Can you imagine giving what would become Social Security aid to older people and unemployment insurance? So there were things going on. It was just and it was a fireside chat because, and I'm glad you said, I'm getting truth bumps. The beauty of the fireside chat was people only had radios then. So we would sit by the radio and we would listen for hope. And you have to remember what was happening. People were starving. We were in a very bad way. We had 20% unemployment. He introduced the New Deal. He put people back to work. And he talks in this particular, I could go sit by the fire actually, but it's too hot. I'm like warm, But anyway, I do have a fireplace. But what I was going to say is that in this particular speech, the first statement he makes, here it is. Okay. I just need to. There were actually 7 drafts. And what I find very interesting about this, and believe me, if I read the whole thing, I'll be here all night. But I'm going to pull out the excerpts that I found most interesting. And you, of course, can search it and find some of these things as well. But I want to talk about what's going on in this speech and then what is going on, what was going on astrologically at that time. And it was really interesting because years later, I would run my father's astrology chart and say, oh my God, thank God he survived this thing, Okay, so the first thing, it starts out and it says, this is not a fireside chat on war. It is a talk on national security, because the hub of the whole purpose of your president is to keep you and your children, keep you now and your children later and your grandchildren much later out of a last-ditch war for the preservation of American independence and all of the things that American independence means to you and to me and to ours. Tonight, in the presence of a world crisis, my mind goes back 8 years ago to a night in the midst of a domestic crisis. It was a time when the wheels of American industry were grinding to a full stop, when the whole banking system of our country had ceased to function. I will remember that while I sat in my study in the White House preparing to talk with the people of the United States, I had before my eyes the picture of all of those Americans with whom I was talking. I saw the workmen in the mills, the mines, the factory, the widows and the old men wondering about their life savings. I tried to convey to the great mass of American people what the banking crisis meant to them in their daily lives. Tonight, I want to do the same thing with the same people in this new crisis which now faces America. And he goes on for a bit talking about meeting the issues and the crisis of 1933 with the courage and realism we all had to face it with. Never before since Jamestown and Plymouth Rock has our American civilization been in such danger as now. Sound familiar? For on September 27, 1940, by agreement signed in Berlin, this is what I wanted to share with you. 3 powerful nations, 2 in Europe and 1 in Asia, joined themselves together in the threat that if the United States interfered with or blocked the expansion program of these 3 nations, a program aimed at world control, they would unite in ultimate action against the United States. The Nazi masters of Germany have made it clear that they intend not only to dominate all life and thought in their own country, but also to enslave the whole of Europe, and then to use the resources of Europe to dominate the rest of the world. 3 weeks ago, their leader stated, there are 2 worlds that stand opposed to each other. Then, in defiant reply to his opponents, he said this, others are correct when they say, with this world, we cannot ever reconcile ourselves. I can beat any other power in the world. In other words, this access is not merely admitting, but proclaims that there can be no ultimate peace between their philosophy of government and our philosophy of government. In view of the nature of this undeniable threat, it can be asserted properly and categorically that the United States has no right or reason to encourage talks of peace. Until the day shall come when there is a clear intention on the part of the aggressor nations to abandon all thought of dominating or conquering the world. So one of the things I want to say about that, and he talks here, he goes on and says at this moment, the force of the states is a great threat to all people's freedom. And he talks about while the Italians and the Germans are on the other side of the Atlantic by the British and by the Greeks, and he talks about other countries as well, the Japanese are engaged in Asia by the Chinese in another great defense. So, and then he talks about the Pacific and what was going on with our fleet. Now, what's interesting about that, of course, is we know that less than a year Pearl Harbor will be attacked in the Pacific. But because of Japan and Japan, Germany, and Italy all being in an alliance, we had any of them could declare war on us, and we would be pulled into the war. And I think that he goes on here, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he says that some of us would like to believe that we have no business, that war in Asia and Europe, that's no concern of ours. But he talks about the Monroe Doctrine, and that's another thing. But he talks about the unwritten agreement, and he goes on to say that, you know, that the idea that does anybody really believe that if we leave Britain alone, even though they have a powerful control of the waters, do you really think that once Germany and Italy take over and they defeat Britain, do you think that they would give us free passage on the waters? And do you think it is only a matter of time until they can reach our shores? And he really talks about this, because what he's fighting for here, and he says, some of us like to believe that even if Great Britain fails, we're still safe because of the broad expanse of the Atlantic and the Pacific. And then he says, but the width of these nations of these oceans is not like the days of clipper ships. And he goes on, and I'm scrolling through it, and he says that frankly and definitely we have to be of service to our allies. We have to help these people. And he says, listen, and then he starts to lay out the plan. And the plan is actually really good. Oh, shoot. I don't know what happened to my, hi, babe, I know. Do you believe this? I know, I'm all like, it says I can't, chat won't connect now. Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, I'm going to finish this part, and I'll just try to get on to another. Hi, Sweet Pea. I know you want to talk. He loves coming up and being with everybody. So what I wanted to say is that one of the, I know, Sweet Pea. I know. It's okay. I know chat's off. He loves when you all compliment him, because that's why he's here. He's like, oh, people can talk about me? We'll talk about you in a minute. One of the things that, and it looks like I'm going to have to jump and then come back. This is what happens, and I think it happens because that's why going on later at night, people aren't on, and it doesn't take up the bandwidth. I think these cable things. But anyway, what I was going to say about that, and I will pick up I'm going to end this in a moment and go to another video so that we can resume chat. He really makes the concerted effort here to help all of us understand that if we don't help Britain by creating ships, planes, munitions, everything that they need to fight their war, it is only a matter of time until Germany, Italy, and Japan can, as Axis powers, come to our soil. And he makes this point so starkly that he says, do you really think, to the American people, he says, do you really think that they will stop where they are? And there's that moment. And with that, I'm going to go to part 2, and I'm going to close this out because obviously something happened here because there's no chat available. And I don't like when I can't connect with you guys. So what I'm going to do is I will close it, and I'll be right back. I'm going to talk about astrology and how the astrological examples and some of the things that were happening with Roosevelt, and a lot of people hated him. Very interesting. All right, I'll be back in just a minute. Ending out.